Holy cow.
Awesome.
Oh! Ready to game?
Hello and welcome to Wednesday Newsday, your number one resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. And today we have probably one of my favorite videos that happens once every year, my recap showing the best of VR tech at CES. And this was probably one of the best shows we've had yet in the history of VR. From hands-on impressions of HTC's newest headset to finally testing all of Pymax's newest offerings, new crazy cool controllers, new wireless base stationless full body tracking, and some utter failures. This year's CES recap will actually be a two-part episode, today with the impressions of all the new VR headsets and tech that's coming soon, and tomorrow with all of the craziest weird VR tech that we've seen yet. So let's just get right into the news and see what VR has to offer over the next year. So I figured a good place to start with my week in Las Vegas at CES is where I started my CES, at the world reveal of HTC Vive's newest VR headset. And I can say pretty confidently that HTC is finally back with probably their best headset they've ever made. However, it's still a hard sell. But first, just a little background. HTC has had a pretty rough few years in the VR world. Really, ever since the Vive Cosmos launched and flopped back in 2019, the company has shifted its entire focus on enterprise. Since then, launching the Vive Flow, Vive Pro 2, and Focus 3, and two of those headsets I actually really liked, at least in concept. And that's where this new headset, the HTC Vive XR Elite, comes in. HTC saying it's essentially the brainchild and amalgamation of their past 3 years of headsets, combining the form factor of the Vive Flow with the standalone nature of the Focus 3 and the PC VR fidelity of the Vive Pro 2, along with the bonus of color pass-through for mixed reality. And the XR Elite is posed to be a direct Quest Pro competitor, just as I thought, with a resolution slightly higher than the Quest 2 but slightly lower than the Quest Pro, at 1920 by 1920 resolution per eye, at 110 degrees field of view at 90 Hz. Also sporting pancake optics with built-in diopters, meaning if you wear glasses, as long as your prescription isn't too far, you can dial in your prescription on the headset itself. The Elite also has a dedicated slider for IPD adjustment, which is always welcome. And my first impression was that the headset itself was really comfortable, at least on my head. At half of the weight of the Quest Pro, the head strap really cups the back of my head and even has an additional top strap that adds a little extra support. Plus, this is pretty much one of the first back-heavy VR headsets. Instead of putting the weight over the front of your head like most hardware, it's on the back of your head supported by your neck. Another interesting thing is that the battery pack, which is the back of the head strap, is fully modular, allowing for hot swappable batteries, extending the 2 or so hour battery life to as long as you can keep them on rotation, while also allowing for a glasses mode similar to the Flow while plugged into a power source. Although I'd probably just be in standard mode most of the time for comfort reasons. The XR Elite also has the standard XR2 processor that's on the Quest 2, so expect similar standalone performance, but with the added wireless bonus of supporting Wi-Fi 6E for better PC VR streaming. The 4 cameras provide inside-out tracking with an additional 16 megapixel camera adding color to the pass-through, even including one thing that the Quest Pro does not have, which is a depth sensor, making the pass-through and mixed reality at this point feel slightly better, if not just different than the Quest Pro, noticeably lacking the wobbly wavy feel that the Pro has. And here's even a little pass-through to real-life comparison I shot through the lenses. I thought it was decently impressive. The XR Elite also has the same controllers as the Focus 3, so there's nothing to really complain about here. The tracking felt solid, and both when testing Hubris standalone and Kayak VR in PC VR streaming mode, the XR Elite felt like a super solid headset. And I'll have to wait until the headset launches in a little over a month to get way more time with it and do a dedicated review, but as much as I like the headset, I still have to worry about the value proposition here. Also wonder how just about every VR headset suddenly all became $1,000 plus devices, but back onto the value. While this is easily HTC's best VR headset yet, it's still launching for $1,100, doing most of what the Quest Pro can do, even some things better, but noticeably lacking all of Meta's software catalog as well as face and eye tracking, something that will be sold at a later date with the Squidward looking add-on for the XR Elite. But when you count that module into the cost, the Quest Pro and XR Elite pretty much cost the same, so at that point it's up to the purchaser. Weight, form factor and comfort, or software catalog and meta support. Still, I'm happy HTC made a really good VR headset, and it is aimed for the prosumer crowd, not necessarily consumers or enterprise, but for most of you, the Quest 2 is still likely the way to go. Hopefully we'll see more in the review. Now let's talk about Shiftall, a company that showed off both some of my favorite things at CES, but also one of the most disappointing. Let's start off with the good. Last year, Shiftall launched the Haratora X, a base station-less full-body tracking system that can work with Quest 2s or really any VR headset, dropping what would be $1,000 plus to have full-body tracking to just $300. And this year, they had something completely new to show. Ditching the system of wires and straps of the original Haratora X, here is the Haratora X Wireless. With mostly the same capability of the wired system, the new wireless setup looks to be a direct early competitor to the new Mocapi system that Sony announced. The Haratora X Wireless weighing in at only 0.6 ounces per tracker with a 20-hour battery life, and only costing $50 more than the wired version, also with a dock that can charge all the trackers at once. The Haratora X Wireless should be available for pre-order next month and shipping in the middle of this year. But it should also be said that the Haratora X and Haratora X Wireless are going to be sold side by side, since they kind of do the same thing, just with slightly different capabilities. But that wasn't my favorite thing from Shiftall. They also announced two new prototypes, the Pebble Feel, a device that offers temperature feedback to the back of your neck in VR. With a system that you can even add into VR chat world, say there's a fireplace, well, if you get close to that fireplace, you can feel warmth on your back. If it's raining or snowy, or you just want to cool down if it's hot in your room, you'll be able to feel a chill down your back. The other prototype though, one that I'm really excited about, is a brand new controller called the Flp VR, a full-on Steam VR tracked controller offering all the buttons you'd normally have on a controller: trigger, grip, buttons, thumbstick, but with one crazy feature: the ability to flip all of the controls out of the way with a flick of the wrist to type, dance, drink some water, DJ, use your phone, anything really. The controller is also fully customizable in terms of control distance, angle, size. All in all, this was probably one of the cooler things I got to test out, and while it's still in prototype phase, it is expected to ship sometime this year. I don't know the price or anything, but it's something I'm really looking forward to, and it seems extremely useful. And definitely be looking for a full video on that later from me. However, not everything was great from Shiftall. Last year when I visited their booth, I tried out the upcoming tiny micro OLED PC VR headset, the MeganeX. With a crazy resolution of 2560 by 2560 per eye, pancake lenses, and a projected price around $900, this thing was looking pretty good. But after a long development time, a Steam VR tracker being added to the headset, some specifications being swapped around, inflation and a recession and rising component costs, the headset's cost has inflated all the way to a bone-crushing price of $1,700. And while the micro OLED display does offer good contrast ratio with a high resolution, this price makes even the Quest Pro or XR Elite look like budget options. And while the comfort is there and the 10-bit color looks pretty alright, the price just makes this headset feel really ridiculous, especially considering it is a PC VR only device and it's not so good that it's worth the cost, at least in my opinion. But if you guys do want to see this more in depth, I'll try to get a unit to fully review. It's just out of the price range of most people, like including myself. And all in all, I was just a little disappointed that a headset that looked so good a year ago seemingly got slightly worse in clarity and optics, weight and size, while getting twice as expensive. But now it's time for a meme break. Honestly, I don't even have any words to say. Just take a look at this. Phone processors were not meant to replace PCs. No killer apps. Uncompressed high resolution. We had a tool for that. It was called 1-hour battery life. Real companies. They have played us for absolute fools. And now back to the news. So if there's one company in the VR industry that likes to overpromise on VR hardware, it has to be Pymax. And this past year, they have announced multiple headsets claiming VR 3.0 with the 12KX and Pymax Crystal promising the best and widest visuals ever on a VR headset. With PC VR and standalone function, eye tracking, modular faceplates, the list just goes on and on. And they also announced the Portal, an Android-based Nintendo Switch-like console that slots into a VR headset cradle similar to an an old Google Cardboard. And after literally a year of wanting to try all this stuff out, I finally got a chance to at least try 2 of their new devices. And spoiler, one was very good, absolutely blowing my expectations out of the water, and one was very, very bad. Let's start with the good one. The Crystal is pretty much the highest resolution full headset I got to try at CES, with a resolution of 2880 by 2880 per eye, QLED and mini LED displays, a 140-degree field of view at its highest, and a 160-degree max refresh rate. But there's kind of a lot to unpack here. The Crystal isn't just a PC VR headset, it also has an XR2 processor for standalone like the Quest 2, also has eye tracking, full wireless PC VR compatibility. It really is kind of an enthusiast's dream. And it's real, and it's actually pretty darn good. The visuals in headset were pretty fantastic, and I was a little blown away. It's almost at Vario Aero clarity with a few gimmicks added, I guess, and with a much wider field of view. And that may sound amazing, but it still wasn't perfect. The tracking with the included controllers was okay, but I'd rather just use the Steam VR tracking faceplate instead, especially considering that it seemed like the controllers had an exceptionally low battery life. There wasn't a single demo station I tried where the controller batteries lasted longer than a few minutes. They were all constantly dead. And that's, well, a little concerning. Also, I didn't get to try the standalone functionality or any sort of wireless PC VR streaming, so I have no clue where that's at in the progress of this headset. Eye tracking also wasn't functional either, and quite a few people complained about a focal plane issue where things off in the distance looked blurry, and I didn't experience much of that, but people did mention it, and it's certainly an issue if that many people mention it. But all in all, the Crystal is looking to be pretty good. It's clear, wide field of view, high resolution. I really liked it, and I kind of want to use it a lot more. But it's still a Pymax headset, and it still costs $1,600. So if you do end up picking this up, you are going to get good visuals, but expect Pymax weird things. And if you don't know what that means, I made a whole video on Pymax not that long ago, and it'll make a lot more sense. It's just attention to detail. But then there's the Pymax Portal, which I have no clue why they even allowed me to test this thing or allowed anybody to test this thing. At least the unit that I got to try was nowhere near finished. As a tablet, it's actually pretty great. As a VR headset though, well, the controllers are really weird. The thumbsticks being inaccessible on one side, the buttons feel kind of gross, except for the trigger. I like the trigger actually. But the biggest issue here was that there was practically zero lens distortion compensation in the software. Looking forward was okay, but look anywhere else and the whole world smushes and distorts and the colors go wild. As of now, the Portal is just not usable at all as a VR headset, at least the demo that I tried. And to be fair, most of this can and should be fixed in software eventually. Just from what I saw, there's a long way to go, and I kind of wish that they didn't even let me try it at all in this state. It's just really concerning, especially considering they're supposed to be shipping this thing, well, now. Oh boy. So I guess fingers crossed, and I hope that at least the Crystal launches well and all of its issues are fixed, and that it launches with its full feature set, because the Crystal does have a lot of potential, even potential as my next main headset. And regarding the Portal, I really hope that it ships in a better state than this, because they're gonna have a big issue on their hands. But moving on, right next to the Pymax booth, another headset that I've been really excited for is the Somnium VR1, an upcoming totally open source PC VR headset in partnership with VRgineers, the creators of the truly insane XTAL. And I was hoping that a fully functional headset would be available for testing at CES, but instead only a small demo showcasing the headset's optic stack and display and pass-through were available. And while it looked pretty good with the 2880 by 2880 resolution and high resolution pass-through, I gotta admit, trying to judge a VR headset that's locked in place is like trying to judge how a car drives while it's parked. So not much to say there other than the headset looks good on display and it exists, and the lenses looked pretty good. And I did also get to try the XTAL 3 completely wirelessly using Nofio's wireless solution, but I'm guessing due to the massive wireless interference at CES, something that the show is known for, I had a pretty choppy and skippy, almost unusable experience. And I'm guessing this is completely the fault of the show floor and all the wireless interference. I have tried Nofio before on the Index and had a much better experience, so either the XTAL's resolution was too much for the Nofio or CES was too noisy, and I'm guessing it was CES. So after all this coverage, please please leave a question of the week down below regarding this entire episode or really anything, and I'll answer a few of them in the next video or maybe even down in the comments. This was a massive blast of VR headset news and information, and CES was absolutely crazy, so I hope you enjoyed this video. And make sure you're looking out for the next one because part 2 is going to be pretty nuts. But I also just really want to thank all my Patreon supporters. They made this trip and all of this coverage possible. And if you want to support the channel and get some behind the scenes videos this week, please consider the Patreon and supporting the channel. I appreciate it endlessly. Other than that though, thanks for watching, and please like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.